This is TWiT.
I was a little hurt. It was a little close to home, a little painful when Intel started to do those ads mocking the M1.
Mocking the M1.
Dissing the M1.
Dissing.
Yes.
I don't know. I would say competing fairly and accurately. I guess there are different ways to.
Okay.
Well, no. Look.
You love those. You always said Microsoft should really respond to those Apple Switch ads. So
yes, this is something I got into. Yeah. This goes back. That was Windows Vista. This was such a long time ago.
Yeah.
Vista had just come out. I'm a Mac. I'm a PC. I think the I'm a Mac. I'm a PC campaign probably started before the release of Vista, and then they really piled it on when Vista came out. And a lot of it got very inaccurate. I guess I know it's marketing, but I took great exception to some of the claims made in these ads, and I don't care about the depictions of the two guys. They were humorous and all that stuff. They were good actors, whatever. But I talked to those Jim Alchin, whoever at the time, the people I dealt with at the time. I was like, guys, you got to fight back, And it took them so long. People probably forget this now, but they did something called Project Mojave, where they set up tents in the parking lots outside of Best Buys. Yeah. And they had people come in and they say, hey, look, here's we heard you guys didn't like Vista.
They tricked
Here's the
people.
Next version of Windows. We changed everything. And people are like, oh my God, it's beautiful. I love this. And it's like, it's Vista.
That was the best ad they ever did.
It was Vista. It was just, they didn't change anything. Yeah, because everyone complaining, not everyone, but there were so many complaints. I'm sure some people used it and said this is crap, but most of the complaints were from people who had never even tried it. I have a very distinct memory. Leo just mentioned Sonoma at some point earlier in the show.
Yes, that's where
I went out to Sonoma
County.
with. My wife and I and our friends. We went and visited some wineries out there, and whatever.
Showing excellent taste. Yes.
Yep, and Sebastiani, one of our favorites. Anyway. I remember I had my laptop open. I remember the exact wallpaper I had, and I remember it distinctly. And my friend's wife walked over, looked at my computer, and she said, "Oh, is that a Mac? That's beautiful." Oh. And I said, "No, that's Windows Vista, the thing that everyone hates." And it was just seared in my mind. And she was like, "Well, by the way, a Mac user, and one of those people is like, oh, never use Windows, And So anyway, Microsoft often tries to take the high road, and my thing is you've got to fight people at the level that they're at. The high road doesn't work because the loudest voice wins, the marketing wins. If Apple in this case is out there marketing.
Do you think this is kind of childish? If you can power a rocket launch and launch Rocket League, you're not on a Mac. Go PC. Those are the two things I want to do on my computer.
No, but that's not the point.
And by the way, I got to point out that there are a few scientists at NASA who might say, well, actually, I use a Mac. So,
okay. Anyway.
They don't play Rocket League, I admit.
Okay. Yeah. Look, we can't.
Ads are never truthful.
We just sat through 4 months of positive M1 marketing.
Yeah.
But
that was accurate.
These baloney graphs that Apple supplied that had no X or Y numbers and no comparison. We just accept this, it's just, and it is Intel's right to fight back against this. I have no problem with this.
I completely agree. Yeah.
And you know what? I feel like even Microsoft has started getting more aggressive than they used to be. I mean, it was so frustrating when you'd see things like the I'm a Mac, I'm a PC thing, and they wouldn't even comment. You couldn't even get a comment off the record, nothing. But now, like if you look at the Google thing in Australia with the news and the publishers, I'm like, so now they've learned like taking the high road isn't a great idea. Just go for it. Like if somebody
no one remembers the guy who decided not to fight. What we remember is Hitler. You know what I mean? Like the people who chose not to take part in that war, we don't remember them. They don't, there's no statues for those people. I mean,
you could be funny or you could bring in your own arsenal. But like, I just feel like I never expect ads to be truthful. I just expect them to go for your emotion.
There should be a standard for truthfulness in ads, and I think
I never believe an ad is true. I always think they're all lies.
Well, there's nothing wrong. This ad is not a lie. I mean, that's true.
No. Right.
I mean, Rocket League anyway. I guess.
Look, here's the thing. So here's how this conversation goes. And this is the problem I have with this whole thing is just the one-sided nature of it. Apple comes out and they make all these claims, and they're all vague and whatever. And then the first wave of reviews comes out, and everyone's like, "Oh my God, performance is incredible, the compatibility is great, this thing's just blah blah blah, whatever. Battery life is great." And yeah, okay, great. And then so we'll come out and say,
"Can you play Rocket League?"
No. That's not, no, don't. It doesn't have to be. No, that's just Intel. I'm just saying.
I know.
Someone will come out and say, "Well, okay, but Mac users are often more technical. A lot of programmers are on the Mac, a lot of designers, and blah blah blah. I need to use multiple displays.
Yeah.
So I have like a 2-display setup here, and can I do that on the M1? No. But here's the problem. So that's a fact. It's just a fact.
Yeah.
But then someone will. This is how the conversation always goes back to be pro Apple at the end. Well, that will happen in the M2. Yeah, we're not talking about the M2. We're talking about the thing that we're competing with today. Because does it work with an eGPU? Oh, it doesn't? Oh, well, there you go. There's another thing you can't do. I mean, the reality is that what Apple did is incredible for Apple, but I don't think it really changes the dynamics of the competitive nature of PC versus Mac. And there are things that you can't do on the M1, which everyone's just kind of glossing over. And when it comes up, they'll just say, "Oh, but they'll wait till you see. Wait until you see what they do with the M2. Oh my, it's the second gen stuff is going to be incredible." Yeah, everything in the future is going to be incredible. We're going to be flying around in cars. We're going to have jetpack things that we go to the store with. I mean, we can only compare what's happening right now. So
you're getting at the heart of what is the problem with tech reviews in general, right?
Yes. Right.
Because not just Apple, but Microsoft does this. Every vendor does this. They pick people almost always pick people they think will give a favorable review to get the first round of hardware, right? Every once in a while that doesn't happen. Like when I got the Surface Duo, that was very surprising because I had been
well, you know what? They took a calculated risk. I think what they saw in you, you were like, okay, she uses Android. She uses Android. She likes Microsoft stuff.
Yeah.
I'm sure that what they were hoping was you were going to say, hey, I love having Excel next to Notepad.
Exactly.
Or whatever.
Exactly. No, but I feel like that's the problem when you see reviews come out a lot of times. I won't say always, but when you read the first round of reviews of any new hardware or software product, you have to think, okay, they've had it for X amount of time. These are the people they thought were going to give it good marks. So let's now wait for the second round, right?
Let us not forget. By the way, so I've been reviewing PC hardware for over 20 years, right?
Yeah.
And I've watched this new crowd of younger people come along, as I'm sure people watched me when I was younger come along and hated me. And they do these quick, they use something for 3 days, they read a review, glowing, it's awesome, and they move on to the next thing. This is very common, whether it's a video review on YouTube or a written review on a website or blog or whatever. I challenge you all to go back and look at August, whatever year it was, when the Note 7 came out, and the glowing, over-the-top reviews about how Samsung has done it again. They've set the high bar. The industry is going to change again. And then they started catching on fire. Because one of the problems with those reviews was they were only based on a few days of usage. No one had the thing for even a couple of weeks.
Right.
And then they started exploding and catching on fire. Yeah. And then they had to recall it,
Yeah.
That's
it's
an extreme version of the problem.
Yeah.
What?
I think it's the pressures of the internet have changed how people do their reviews. Like, remember when even before the Duo came out, people were going to Best Buy and doing a review by holding the device in their hand in Best Buy and then posting it as a hands-on review. Because everybody wants to be first, and nobody cares anymore about what about thoroughness, right?
At the Surface, the very first Surface event, which I refused to go to because they wouldn't tell me what it was, and I had to fly all the way to Los Angeles. There were people who held mock-ups of Surface PCs because they didn't have any real ones,
right?
And then they wrote hands-on reviews of the product. People that we know did this, and I mean, this is I suppose this is the pressure of the internet age or whatever, but I just feel like you can be fair, Why wouldn't you want to be fair all the time? I'm sure these people think they're fair. I don't know. But anyhow, look, what Intel's stance on the M1 is something that I agree with completely. And it's not it arrived there organically. It's not like I align with Intel.
What is
I think
their stance on the M1?
That what Apple did with the M1 is incredible.
Oh, okay.
And they've literally said this to me. It doesn't really impact the PC market that much.
Yeah.
And no, at all. Like, I don't think it ever will. And the reason is, and by the way, look, Intel can adopt processor architectures and do different cores and all that stuff. I'm sure their products will evolve. For a Mac user, and especially as the future generations do come and it encompasses all the Macs, yes, I mean, these are nice upgrades. We already have PCs that get 10 to 20 hours of battery life. We already have PCs that can do all these things. Like, PCs already are in the space. They're already there. Good. And I just don't. The
if
problem with
it's not a threat
Apple,
to Intel, they should just keep doing what they're doing.
No. Hold on. There's two sides to Intel
because they're on a good path, long run, I think.
Well, okay. So what does that mean, though? Do you think that Macs are going to take over the PC market somehow? Because that's 65% of their revenues. I don't see that happening ever. Okay. Well, it's not going to happen. So whatever. I mean,
I don't think Apple wants it to happen. Do you?
No.
I think
there's
Apple
all sorts of other
wants
reasons
to be the
why,
premium.
Why that's not.
No. Okay. I'm sorry. Let me just boil this down to the important point is this: what Apple did is incredible, like I said, and like Intel has said. The problem with Apple and the success that they have, no matter what we're talking about, is it's often something that other companies can't duplicate and can't have the same success if they do the same thing. And that's what this is. This is something that works for Apple. And because of the way they are and because of the way they do things. It's something that, we can talk about processor architectures and, whatever the technology, but this is really what they're doing is cutting out partners, which is what they always do, and bringing everything in-house, which is what they always do. And it's something that works for them. It's not something HP could do or Microsoft can do. And, that's the problem. The threat to Intel is not so much Apple, but I would say ARM more broadly because of the data center. I think ARM's biggest pain point for Intel is going to happen in the data center, not on the PC, especially in the short term. That's all. But that's not what we're talking about. Intel doesn't talk to me about data center stuff. That's not, that's not, I don't review data center things. I mean, I review computers. And I went through an extensive hardware compatibility checklist that I created, by the way. And the M1 did fantastically well.
I'm going to predict that the M1 will impact the PC industry exactly the same way as the iPhone impacted the smartphone industry, which is not to say that the iPhone dominates the smartphone industry. Samsung's the number one, or Huawei is the number one manufacturer. So if you're counting unit volume, you're right. PCs will continue to be a dominant. But I think the iPhone absolutely changed the industry. And I think that you're going to see demand for high power, low TPU processors increase. And if Intel does not respond to that, they're going to be out of the market. And it won't be necessarily Apple. It might be Qualcomm or AMD
Intel is a chipset maker. So if Apple impacts the market, influences the market to change to make things more like Apple products, that's fine. All Intel cares about is volume sales. So if Intel is 80 to 90% of all of the chips that are sold on PCs and PC-type devices, who cares? I mean, and by the way, Intel is, of course, evolving their chipsets to meet this need.
Well, that's what I mean. I think the influence of the M1 doesn't mean Apple's going to dominate, but it does mean it's going to change the way people think about processors.
Look, Microsoft went to ARM because it couldn't get Intel to embrace this ultra-mobile thing, this need for super thin, light, no fans,
right?
ARM-style architecture. And this is another conversation I had with Terry Myerson, actually, where he told me that his goal with Windows 10 on ARM was to get those effing Intel stickers off of laptops. He hated those things. But he didn't care who they partnered with. He partnered with Qualcomm because of size and scope. AMD was, in his words, circling the drain at the time. Really, a perfectly acceptable outcome to him and to Microsoft in general, I'm sure at the time, was that Intel just started making good meaning efficient mobile chipsets. Like, that's all he really wanted. He only went to Qualcomm because Intel wasn't doing that. Intel was always pushing the performance thing. Like remember that little gift that Intel gave us a couple of years ago where they just doubled the cores on their base core processors from 2 to 4, and it was extra performance with no hit in battery life, no extra cost. It was perfect. But that's the kind of thing Intel can do. They're good at that kind of thing, I don't know. We'll see. I just,
yeah.
All I can do now, because I'm part of this, unfortunately, and I say unfortunately because, my God, you should read the comments on my website. But what I see is what Intel has said. I actually agree with them. Apple has done with the M1 is really impressive. And when you talk about Apple influencing the industry, I mean, I guess you could apply that on a number of levels, and they don't all target Intel. Windows 10 on ARM runs x86 apps in an emulation environment that is based on the x86 emulation environment they added to Windows NT 20 years earlier, right? It's the same technology. Apple is using, it's not emulation, it's translation to run x86 apps in their ARM environment, and it really seems to work really well. This is the thing where you get that couple of seconds of delay the first time you run the app, and then it's fine, right? Perfect. Maybe there's something Microsoft could learn from that and re-architect Windows 10 on ARM to behave similarly and have better compatibility and better performance with legacy apps. We'll see. I will say it is fascinating to me that Microsoft, a company that is so concerned with backward compatibility, got that wrong, and Apple, a company that doesn't give a crap about backward compatibility, got that right with the M1, right? It's kind of fascinating.
Well, but if they had cared about backward compatibility, they probably would have changed away from Intel. Actually, they'd still be doing PowerPC probably. I mean, that's the beauty of not caring about backward compatibility is you can move on.
Well, it's a double-edged sword for sure.
Oh, that's why it doesn't run Rocket League. But
no, but I think
it's a worthwhile trade, to be honest.
It's a tweet. That's the only place that has ever appeared is in that one tweet.
Paul, I didn't bring up this advertising campaign.
Well, no, I know, but I mean, that's one specific example. I mean,
it's a tweet.
Intel is correct to point out the things that the M1 can't do.
And I'm with you. The company should fight back. Absolutely.